What's happening, everybody? Welcome to PowrTalk Synganic Sessions. Got my main man, Kevin Crouch. Kevin, how you doing?
Good, doing great.
So guys, we're stoked. We're really excited about what Lumpy's put on with California's Finest a couple weeks ago. We're proud, we're honored that we were recognized as the #1 hybrid flower submission with Lip Smackers. Shout out to Good Greens Genetics on that. We're here, we're growing. One of the cool things was that we had some really nice doinks rolled up by Bruno, who also took first place in his infused joint category using some flower from PowrHouse too. So shout out Bruno, great job, man. I also want to talk about the Synganic approach.
Yeah.
So that's the purpose why we're here, guys. We're trying to help educate. A lot of people started reaching out after that competition, specifically because they want to know a little bit more about our methodology of growing. So if you're at the booth, you saw that we have all the products on there, literally outlined right there. And all of our QR codes show you the recipes. We're here. So we're going to start talking a little bit more about the simple steps of the inoculations and the weekly Synganic recipes that Kevin's been developing for tons of years. And now we're here. We're going to start with the basics of what does our initial inoculation look like, Kev?
Sure. Yeah. So our inoculation currently, and it could ever be ever changing as well. So this is what we currently use. And so we have a High Shield by Hygrozyme. It's a chitosan product. And we use that at 20 mils a gallon.
What does High Shield do? What's that do to the plant response?
So the chitosan, it's basically shell. It's like a shell extract from crustacean, sea crustaceans like shrimp and so forth. So it helps build up the plant immunity to fungal pathogens specifically. So it could be PM, botrytis, and so we use it weekly in this. I also foliar it as well. So it's a great product. It's used in the commercial ag market as well. So it's maybe just catching on in cannabis.
And this particular product in particular, right? The High Shield is helping a number of things, right? It's helping from plant immunity overall, right? It's going to increase trichomes. It's going to increase overall cellular wall development in the plant, which late round, right? When we start messing with that VPD to try to get some colder environments and whatnot, it does protect from some molds and funguses. So
absolutely. It's just building your plant up as best as you can early or throughout the process to have that end product be great.
Cool. So we're starting with High Shield. What next?
So this is Full Power by BioAg. I use this at 10 mils a gallon. And the fulvic acid, it's a cold press microbial extraction is to me one of the best, if not the best, fulvic acid on the market. It's plant available. The size of the molecule the plant can actually uptake. Stuff like humic acid is more for building soils. The fulvic is for plant uptake, and I also foliar that as well.
So that's a great point. So going back to High Shield real quick, is that an inoculation and foliar, or just
foliar?
Okay.
Yep.
So the first two items here we have as an inoculation and a foliar.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep. And so the Full Power in both methods help the plant uptake the nutrients a little more effectively. So it's not necessarily going to build plant immunity or anything like that. It's just good to have in there, and it makes your plant efficient, an efficient vector.
Cool.
So
it's going to make all these items that you're throwing into the cocktail just more useful.
As well as your NPK, just whatever's in your substrate. So not just this, but your whole plant. And really, it's something you could use every feed, and it'll only increase the effectiveness of those nutrients. So
cool.
Which is great to do.
Awesome. So we've got High Shield, we've got Full Power. What's next?
So this is both powders, so the green grow green aminos and the all-in-one. And so I just blend the powders or put them in one container. And so the green grow green aminos is made up of 2 forms of calcium, protein hydrosalate, which is the aminos. It also has seaweed and kelp in there. And it has a lactose carrier that helps it go through your emitters as well as just be completely soluble. So this is a whole soluble product.
Let's touch on that, man, because this is exactly why we're doing what we're doing, is because we want to be able to deliver these biostimulants and organics through the drippers, right?
Yeah.
We want to be able to deliver everything in a commercial setting, right? Hand watering is not always effective repetitively at scale. So we want to be able to identify these product solutions that are soluble enough to not get clogged up in the drippers. And kudos to you, Kev. Like, you developed this product with Mark at Green Grow and Kevin Vu at Indoor Sun. And this is the solution that you came up with. So huge respect to you, man, because this is how that's what PowrHouse is up to. Like, we're really trying to ensure that we can get commercial solutions through the drippers and just make it easy to do.
Yeah. I appreciate that. And so, and the reason for developing this is prior, there was a similar product, the all-in-one, that had a zeolite carrier, which is very common in formulas, zeolite or talc. Mm-hmm. And so zeolite is basically like a glass, like sand. It looks like sand. And so, and that will sell. I appreciate that. And so, and the reason for developing this is prior, there was a similar product, the all-in-one, that had a zeolite carrier, which is very common in formulas, zeolite or talc. Mm-hmm. And so zeolite is basically like a glass, like sand. It looks like sand. And so, and that will settle out in your filters and your bucket. And this isn't it's not soluble.
Right.
So I used to filter that zeolite out of the previous batch.
Well, does that impact the CFUs and the effectiveness of everything? Or
I mean, anytime you add a filter to anything, I mean, it could, but generally speaking, I just use a very thin paint strainer. Okay. And that was enough to get out that zeolite. And I was able to get it through the emitters without that zeolite. But when working with Kevin, and Mark, I was like, hey, is there a better way to do this? And they were like, absolutely.
Just get you better carrier.
Yeah. So it's exactly how that was born. So
amazing.
And that was directly responsible for operating a commercial facility. So I wanted to be able to make it as easy as possible.
How many drippers did you have per room at Delighted?
I mean, depending on the room and the time frame, but I had anywhere from 6,000 to 7,000 emitters at one time when I was using the inoculant.
And you're blasting this stuff through no clogged emitters.
Nope.
So, but that comes with a big asterisk mark. If you're not prepared to blast inoculants, if you don't have flush valves, if you're not properly set up with weekly cleaning SOPs, this is not for you. We are here to help get you there. Specifically with Rivalus, shout out to Omar, who came by and got us linked up with a lot of different opportunities to improve our flush valves and our whole overall irrigation strategy with this, because he knew that we needed, some upgrades in our stuff. So this is what we want to, again, just cautionary. Please do not just start blasting these organics through your drip lines if you're not prepared with flush valves at the table. What else, Kev? What are some other things?
If you could even do a flush valve pre-table, something that, you can kind of, not so much on the weekly basis, but on your line, your line clean, end of round line cleans, you want that flush valve pre-table as well. That way you can get all the salts, organics, everything in your line out before it hits your emitters.
Cool.
So those are the main things, but you definitely want to be able to get any residual organics out at least post inoculation, sometime within 24 hours is what I found.
Makes sense. You don't want that biofilm to accumulate. You just got to keep it clean.
I'm not going to say if you don't do that, you're going to clog emitters, because there's been times I forgot to do it and I didn't clog emitters.
Sure.
So, but I think it's just a good practice to do.
Okay.
Minimize risk.
Exactly. So we've got the high shield, we've got the full power, we've got the all-in-one and the green aminos. Yep. What else is going in your cocktail?
So that's it right now.
Okay. So we're mixing this in with nutrient water, or what are we mixing?
So yes, I usually mix it in with nutrient water because I don't want to affect the substrate EC when I apply it. So this is basically nutrient water. And so the powders I mix separately in a gallon, depending on the volume you're doing. If you're mixing 400 gallons, you're probably going to want to do this in multiple buckets because you don't want to create a sludge in your tank. But since we're only doing a 5-gallon bucket, I just chose a 1-gallon container. So you just pour it in, slow, you don't try to minimize the dust. You don't want to breathe in the dust. And you just, kind of stir it and get it fully dissolved in this container.
Tony, did you want to bring the camera in for a little bit, or can you? We got We got an active producer over here. He's bringing the camera all the way around. But really the purpose was so that we can help show you guys the consistency of this stuff, because we've had a lot of questions. Let's see if you can, there you go. Let's get that zoom.
So it's very, it's fully dissolved right now, and it didn't take much effort at all. You can put this directly in the bucket, but I prefer to put it in a primary water source or nutrient source, and then pour it in. And that helps. What you might see if you don't do that, if you just were to dump the powders in here, it might start sticking to the sides, especially if you were to be doing this in a batch tank. And so say you have a batch tank and you haven't cleaned it in 2 weeks or a week, and then you pour a powder straight in there, or too sludgy of a mix, it'll stick to the biological or the biofilm, whatever you might have on the side. And then you're going to get additional sludge that you can avoid by doing this, or really, clean your tank prior to doing an inoculation, and to minimize that as well.
Got it. So order of mixture, you put your powders in first, and then you go with your liquids.
Yep.
Okay.
And I think, in this case, what we have here, I don't think it probably matters that much, but that's typically what I do. Okay. So then you just pour it into here.
And what do we have in here as well? Is this a bubbler of some sort? What do we got?
So you can see there's nothing really left in there. So fully soluble. And I actually have a small mixing pump in there. Okay. And you might get, people, always say you're going to get a reduction of CFUs with mixing pumps, and you probably will. I have not actually done a study on that, but there's the point is you're going to get you're going to get microbes in there regardless. And there's ways to counteract that too. If you wanted to brew those microbes prior and get your CFUs higher, initially.
So you can brew it the day before you're actually going to put it in. And guys, we're going to probably get a lot of feedback around organics going through the pump. We realize that we're going to lose some microbial life in there. We understand that, but to Kevin's point, we're getting them in regardless, right? Yeah. So we're getting it in, and at that same point, this is where the whole Synganic methodology comes in. There are specific strains of bacillus in here that react well to salts and higher EC. So again, these are formulated specifically for this type of approach. Yeah. I just want to touch on that because we will be doing a study. Shout out to Sam at Arvin Plant Labs. We're going through the process. We'll get Mark with Green Grow involved as well to talk about substrate CFU, whether it's rock wool versus cocoa, and, again, going through these different types of pumps and whatnot, because we do want to understand a little bit more about how much CFU loss that we're losing. Yeah. And then another cool thing with Chirospace, shout out to Jeremy and Juan, because we do believe that adding in dissolved oxygen water to our brew is going to help increase the CFU overall.
Yeah. And not only that, it'll help multiply those CFUs. We won't have to worry about an air stone or an airlift system that you would use to help multiply the CFUs. So, it's going to be fun. Yeah. I can't wait.
So what does that lead to? So if we can get more CFUs in there and we're multiplying them at a better rate, we're using less product. So it can increase the efficacy of this as well. So shout out Chirospace. We'll be getting more information on that soon. So you just added in your high shield?
The high shield. And so you see this is it's very thick product. So I normally take this and I just ensure I get all the product in by sloshing it up and down.
Cool. Looks good.
And then full power is comes out like water.
Very soluble.
You don't really have to do that in this case. So, and then I usually just plug it in, and I really minimize the amount of pump time. It's really for when I'm applying it. And if it could be, you could just use a stick too. And, say you're doing a clone trays, you could just, stir and then pour it into the clone tray. So you don't need a pump. It's just whatever method works for you to get it in to your substrate and keep it mixed. And it is fully soluble, but it will, you'll see some of it's a little heavier than others, so it will settle out and a little bit on the bottom.
Okay. So how long could this batch sit for without stirring it, or do you want to keep it constantly stirred?
I would prefer, probably 10 minutes, 15 minutes is what I would say.
Quick application then.
Yeah. Got it. And the more you mix it, I just feel like it's more, a little more uniform.
Sure. So going into your clone tray, right? So your initial bed, or going from clone What about transplanting if you're using this cocktail?
So, you doing this same thing in a 55-gallon barrel with a sump pump is the way that I do it. You can put it in a batch tank, preferred cone bottom batch tank.
Why cone bottom?
Once when you get organics in a flat bottom, they're just tough to get out. So it's not an easy task.
Done it before, and shout out to Indoor Sun for their PAA and their Green Clean Alkaline. I mean, there's products that you got to use to really get the cleaning and the degreasing out of there.
So, this can be really applied in any which way you want to do it. There's just easier ways that save your back. And
for sure. So again, like if you're not set up for blasting through your irrigation system, hand watering is perfectly fine. So you get your sump pump, you get your wand, good to go.
Yeah, and if you are concerned with pumps, you can always, same thing. You just pour it out into each plant. Now, when you have 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 plants in a facility on a multi-level setup, it's a little difficult and time-consuming to do that. So,
yeah. Cool. What other final parting thoughts about this inoculation that you want to touch on?
I think, the design of what we have here is it's a very cost-effective way to apply. The all-in-one, the microbial concoction in there is amazing, and for the price. And then you brew it, you get, you can always get higher CFUs. The green aminos, to me, is one of the best products I've found. And I love that product for foliar as well. Yeah. So really what we have here is just a great combo of commercially available product that won't hurt your wallet.
Cool.
At least that's how I feel. And there's always tweaks and things. Yeah, so I don't think this isn't exactly what I see us probably using in a year. We're going to tweak it to how we find best, especially with the studies of, what we see with going through the DO and the studies with Mark. And
PowrHouse is all about Six Sigma, man. Yep. We're going to be constantly improving these solutions, and that's the great part. So we appreciate you guys giving us feedback, asking questions, because that's going to only help improve the overall process. We're doing this for the community, right? We want to grow better weed. We want to have the higher terps. You'll see our whole campaign at the MJ BizCon this year. Turn up the terps is our whole concept about this, and we're going to have a couple different panel discussions around Synganic and just overall just growing better weed. So Kev, I appreciate you showing this, because this is it, guys. It all starts with your inoculation, right? We want to be able to start, and obviously, like, we've got the recipe built out. If you go to our Instagram page, the link is right in our bio with all these different product solutions from BioAg, Green Grow. We also have a couple different things outlined too with United Nutrients, of starting with the clean nutrient program. That's crucial. Yeah. Like getting, you want to talk a little bit about base nutrients, because people are curious, does this work with what other type of nutrients?
Really this will work with anything that you have. And, it supplements, and that's the good thing. You still need NPK. There's no NPK in here. So whatever you're using, this is just an additive. And there's a lot of products that might have similar, especially if you buy fancy bottle nutrients, there's probably aminos in some of those. But you're going to pay for that. Sure. And, pay a premium. And this is a really cost-effective way to me, get an even better product. Yeah. And so, but it's compatible with any nutrient program.
That's the thing, Kevin. We're always talking about commercialization of these things, right? We want to get powders. If it's available in liquid, great, but powders is preferred, because we understand that the cost of our inputs is important. Margins are thin these days. And, a big part of that is, starting with the clean nutrient ratio program, which, hey, shout out to United Nutrients. I mean, that was the base nutrient that we had here for our lip smackers at the competition of Lumpies. So,
and this was also applied weekly all the way through, and foliar. The products I mentioned for foliar were also applied. So that whole program was used.
Perfect. Cool. So this was early stage. We're going to come back on the next session and talk about mid stage and then late stage as well.
Sure.
Because I think our whole goal is to simplify the process. So we want to go early, mid, and late stage, and a lot of different solutions that we're utilizing here at PowrHouse. Until then, man, this has been a great session, Kev. Thank you for your time. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Yeah. This has been great. And shout out to Grow World. Appreciate you hosting us on the platform. We'll see you guys at MJ BizCon in Las Vegas, December 4th, 5th, and 6th. Hope to see you guys there. Much love.
Thanks, guys.